Let me tell you a story from the Bible. It's about a man named Gideon, a surprising hero who led an impossible victory. It's a story about fear, faith, and what happens when you trust something bigger than yourself. For 7 long years, the people of Israel were being bullied by a group called the Midianites. Every time the Israelites grew food or raised animals, the Midianites would swoop in like a swarm of locusts, stealing everything and leaving them with nothing. The Israelites were tired, scared, and desperate. So, finally, they cried out to God for help. That's where we meet Gideon. He wasn't a soldier or a leader. He was just a regular guy, hiding in a winepress trying to thresh some wheat, basically grinding grain in secret so the enemy wouldn't see him. He was afraid, just like everyone else. But suddenly, an angel appeared and said something kind of wild. "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." Gideon looked around like, "Who? Me?" He didn't feel like a warrior. In fact, he told the angel, "I'm from the weakest family in our tribe, and I'm the least important person in it." But the angel said, "You're the one. God will be with you. You're going to save Israel." Now, Gideon wasn't so sure. He asked for signs, twice. First, he put out a wool fleece and said, "If this is really from God, make the fleece wet with dew, but the ground dry." And it happened. Then he said, "Okay, one more time. But reverse it. Make the fleece dry and the ground wet." And again, it happened. Gideon finally believed this was real. So Gideon called for volunteers to fight, and 32,000 men showed up. That sounds good, right? But God said, "That's too many?" Too many? Why? Because if Israel won with a big army, they'd think they did it all on their own. God wanted them to know He was the one giving the victory. So God told Gideon to tell anyone who was scared to go home. 22,000 men left. Just like that. Only 10,000 remained. But God wasn't done. He told Gideon to take the men down to the water. Those who lapped water like dogs were sent home. Only the ones who scooped it up with their hands stayed. When it was all said and done, Gideon had just 300 men left. 300 against thousands of Midianite warriors. It made no sense. But that was the point. That night, God told Gideon to sneak down to the enemy camp. There, he overheard a soldier talking about a dream, one that predicted Midian would fall into Gideon's hands. That gave Gideon the courage he needed. Instead of swords and shields, Gideon gave his men trumpets, clay jars, and torches. Strange weapons for a battle, right? They surrounded the Midianite camp. And at Gideon's signal, they blew their trumpets, smashed their jars, and shouted, "A sword for the Lord and for Gideon!" The Midianites woke up in total panic. They thought they were being attacked by a massive army. In the confusion, they turned on each other and ran. God had delivered Israel, not with might, but with faith and obedience. Gideon became a leader, and the land had peace for 40 years. So what's the takeaway? Sometimes we feel small. We doubt ourselves. We think, "Why me?" But this story shows that courage isn't about being fearless. It's about trusting the one who calls you, even when the odds are against you. You don't have to be the strongest, the loudest, or the most important. Just willing. And that's more than enough.